last time. Okay, I did.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, we
Yeah.
can continue. Like it was just a minute that we got cut off, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, what I was saying is, you know, and which kind of triggered something in you is like we are the ones we've been
Mm.
waiting for, you know.
Mm. Mm.
Meaning, this is something that I've heard many times. The uh, the people of the shift, you know, the people who will make that transition from huh, how can I say that? How can I say that? See, as a group of women our age group, let's say,
Mm.
am I a little bit older than you, but still, you know, we are not in our 20s anymore,
Mm.
you know. We had access to so much that our mothers did not have. We had access, and we brought about change in, you know, the women's liberation. There is more freedom, there is more equality. It's far from perfect, it's far
Mm.
from done, you know.
Mm.
But when you see what's happening in other parts of the world where they're still
Mm.
not the same. I mean, just last week they announced that women are going to be able to drive in Saudi Arabia next June. You know, I lived 20 years in Saudi Arabia, so it's like there, that that conditioning, that patriarchal conditioning was, you know, like the archetype of patriarchy, really, you know, where
Mm.
women did not have the freedoms that we've had. I mean, in the last few years, 10 years or so, they had access to a lot of education because they have introduced this. But, you know, so that's what I meant, you know. We have been very privileged in the West as women,
Mm.
and we have a responsibility.
Mm.
That's part of what I meant, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, we cannot just kind of, okay, fine, lucky me, you know, but there is um, I was almost going to say an obligation that comes with the privilege.
Mm. Yeah. I think I think it's like what I'm looking at. I think we've all got different angles that we're
Mm-hmm.
coming from. And for me, it seems to be focusing around children and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
creating environments for, you know, like younger people and
Mm-hmm.
which to flourish, or, you know, to which pretty much has taken me back to my business model when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's lots of other authentic business models out there. You know, and so it's more taking me back to my strategic roots,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, it's it's like holding that shared vision that it's going to ripple globally,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be, it can be done like by not necessarily being physically there, but actually holding that vision with somebody else, you know, like, so if you were setting up something in Saudi Arabia, for example, or there was a group of women there, you know, we can as a collective hold the higher vision for them, you know, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
aspect. And I think you start to see, like, if you do it in your individual, you know, you start to see that hope and that bigger dream, and, you know, that it can shift.
Mm-hmm.
um so I can understand from that perspective when you say we are the ones, because we wouldn't be going through these life experiences and being conscious of them and wanting to write about them and want to share them if that is the purpose, really. But it's I think the obligation aspect, it's like when we let go of the control of the old way of, because you're very strategically, and it's how the business world is very, up until now or whatever, we're shifting. It's all very still conventional aspect, and particularly in the UK with the political system, and and what I find I'm saying things like, and I've always done this. It's like you almost like predict things a little bit, because you'll be saying, or you hear somebody else saying it. Like, example would be, I said about how in our political system, and this isn't said with judgment about the people, it's just a fact, really, that there doesn't seem a need for the people, because when I look around, there's no need for the politicians, because like when you look around, other people are just getting on with their life, just doing things. We travel to different countries. There's nothing about Brexit or whatever. There's just no barriers. But when we look at our sort of political system, it's just outdated completely. It doesn't, and I'm not just saying that, like other people are saying it, but they're not saying it from a point of fear. It's just matter of factual. And I listened to something today, and they were talking about how the shift will be happening from the roots up, and I can envisage, like, communities really helping each other, like we've got food banks, and people are putting food in the food banks. Homeless people are starting to really realize that they have problems, and they're not just on the streets and they've got a Porsche around the corner, that sort of aspect. So the social change is happening, but it's not independent of whatever is happening in the political system and the business system, which is interesting. I just felt that was, I think you can see that happening. There's almost like a knowing that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the world over, when you see what's going on, we are living in that, that chaos zone. It's like an end, the end of a system, the end of something, and it could go on for another few years before the new, but the new is already emerging. You have that whenever you are in the chaos zone. That's chaos theory. You also have the new emerging, simultaneously. It's just like you get to hear from the dysfunctional structures more, because most of the people still tune in to the old structures, like television, etc. They will only report the chaos. You have to search for the alternate news. They exist, but you have to go and search for it. You have to know where to go also for that.
And I think because when you travel, you obviously see things from a different perspective.
Yes, definitely. And the fact that you have lived in different parts of the world, and so did I, gives us, I would say, an advantage.
Yes,
because you just are not blinded in just one way. You can,
and it's also I think what I like about how I'm being in the most of the time anyway, is that I'm there's that sort of detachment from it. Like, I mean, it is upsetting when you see things, because of my husband being very like he wakes up in the morning and he tells me what's happened in the news, you know, and so there's no, I'm not burying my head in the sand. You know, I hear the different perspectives, and him and I have quite interesting conversations about it, and we actually quite agree with things, but he quite often criticize, and I'll say, well, what are you doing about it? You know, what you actually doing about it? And yeah, so there's different, I think we are on different levels doing, you know, being just by having this conversation, just by and start to give ourselves credit for that as well, and everybody else that's going to be listening to this recording, you know, that, you know, it's it's good.
And also this I believe is, you know, when you express your truth and your perspective in a circle, doesn't mean everybody agrees with you or whatever, you know, but it's an opportunity to test your voice publicly in a way, you know, which is something that, this is the hiding part, you know, the not showing up part, where at times it is still challenging for us, you know, to get out there, you know, and express the message that, you know, we have to express, you know, that you can change, you can heal. You don't have to be in the old kind of way of being, you know. And it's when you have around you more people that are in the old ways, it's challenging to express that a different way is possible, you know. I mean, it's you know, just in the last few months, I was immersed in listening to some documentaries on GMO, for example, you know, and the health consequences they had on the population, with incidences of cancer, depressions, autism, you know. I mean, it's horrific, you know. And it kind of made me aware of the fact that, especially in North America, Canada included, 95% of what is growing in the fields is GMO and pesticides, you know. And I'm seeing people I know impacted health-wise by that. And it's like, this is part of one of the projects that I have going back, you know, to create maybe a meetup where I will invite people to listen to those documentaries and see, you know, because if you don't know, if you're not educated, you have no choice. You cannot choose differently. You think, you know, the government is taking care of our health, you know. Perhaps you need to look differently, you know. Perhaps you need to kind of get some facts, and then you realize there is quite a lot of things that have changed, you know. Deregulations and the lobbyist of big corporation has really created havoc on our health system.
Yeah, and I think it's you know, it's there's lack of transparency in it, you know, and it is a cover up. You know, we've noticed that, like with the European, you know, the Brexit and things, and how our politicians are clinging to it, and you know it's because of the transparency, because once it becomes transparent, and you know, there is corruption,
of course,
and it's going to be, the light is shining on it, so there's more clinging, and you know, I don't think I think it is a case of being able to keep shining the light on it, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's without it being, you know, I still, I know when people march and there's activism and things, but it's not creating other structures everywhere again, you know, like, because, you know, people who are talking about, you know, being vegetarian, and then I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and it was like, it was I wasn't vegetarian. It was about people being children in school having to accept boys dressing up in girls, you know, clothes and things, and how. I mean, there's what I'm trying to say is you've got to be careful that we don't become too silo thinking again with the new ways of coming in, because a 6-year-old doesn't really understand the concept of, you know, being a transvestite or whatever. No, and I think that's the thing. It's, we want to change it completely and have acceptance and love, you know, for everything.
For the differences,
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what you started off saying about what you got from the course, you know, that it was that unconditional acceptance or allowance, yeah. You know, unconditional allowance of, because then there's no judgment, so people can feel that love coming through, that you know, and there's nothing to fight against.
Yeah,
you know, just accepting.
And that's a challenge for me, at least, you know, is because I do know the principle that when you accept somebody the way they are, you open the door for transformation. I know that.
Yeah.
But living it is quite another road. So that's going to be my resolve, you know, when I come back.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Yeah,
to kind of be reminding myself of that, you know. I'll have to create some kind of a mantra to waking up to remember that, because it's challenging sometimes. Yeah.
The fact that you've shone the light on it, you know, you're aware of it, I think is because one of the things I've learned recently is that men, you know, I knew this, but I hadn't really accepted it, that men and women have different communication channels. I know that's seems pretty obvious, but I was always striving to have this sort of deep conversation that we're having, and, you know, the women, and, you know, it's Rich and with my husband, and I would try and tell him, you know, I'd been on a course and then the penny dropped when it was like, just trust that he can sort things out from himself, you know. Trust him. And it was a younger person was saying that when she did this in her relationship, how things just changed because we men communicate differently. Now, so that's why I've signed up for the course as well. You know, your talks that you're going to be involved in, and because I think it's that understanding how men and women are different, and obviously how we balance our male and female energies as well. And so and now that, like, I've sort of put that out there, that trust aspect, and then and sometimes when it's like talk about whatever, I'm just letting it go. I'm not attached to it. And it's the same with my husband and my dad as well. You know, it's like, now I trust my dad, the decisions he makes with my mum, even though it's not how I would do it. I just say, oh, just trust him. And then he's like, yeah. My mum's different with dad, and I don't know.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just
it's like,
shifts, doesn't it? But it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it takes that sort of. It's logical. You're thinking, well, yeah, of course it's like, of course they're different. That,
Yeah.
and I was sharing this with my husband. I said, "Oh, I realize that you're different."
Yeah, it is not going to be, it's not going to be perfect the way we would do it, right?
But it's not. I
Ah,
mean, it's not so much. It's much so much the sort of, because he's very much in touch with his feminine aspect of housey stuff. Probably more than I am, because I rebelled against it. But it's the emotional sharing of your feelings. And I'm so open about my feelings, and I'm so aware because of the work. Whereas he doesn't really share until it's like, and that's okay. That's, and that it sounds such a small thing, but it's been quite major for me. It's the same with my boys, like my boys, my sons. Like, now I can have really in-depth conversations with their wife and their girlfriend, more so with a girlfriend, and she's helped me with my business and things like that. So yeah, so it's just, yeah. It's lovely, and it's lovely to have these, going back to the circles, like it's really important, I think.
yeah, it's kind of a support that is beyond anything specific and concrete,
Yeah,
It is like
yeah.
a energetic form of support, and an unconditional allowance and an acceptance of each other, really, allowing our differences and our presences to express whatever,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I feel like Vivian with us as well. I think with these circles, they go beyond the people who are actually here. Like you and I, and and sometimes I forget people's names, because you feel that oneness together. We sort of mirror each other, and there is that connection, which is lovely. And
Yes.
yeah.
So,
Well,
shall we conclude, Fiona?
yes. Well, thank you. Thank you
Yes.
again for reaching out, and thank you for
Yes.
sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you.
And,
Well, probably next time it will be after the full moon, the new moon, because I will not be available. So I'll try to
yeah,
kind of send an email a week before when
yeah,
when I can, when I'm back, because I'm going to be on that writing retreat again for a few days when I come
yeah.
back, and then I can do it after that when I resume my life in Canada.
Whereabouts in Canada are you?
It's Richmond Hill, which is north of Toronto.
Oh,
The
okay.
big suburb of Toronto. Right.
Yeah. I my aunt lives. I think it's Brampton. She lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
another kind of suburb, more on the side. I don't know whether it's west. I think it's
I
west.
don't know.
Not sure. Yeah.
I went to Orangeville when I was very little. Well, I was about 10, I think. So anyway, so it's just nice to, yeah. I'm sure we're going to meet up physically one day.
One day. Yeah, one day.
One day.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much. And
Okay.
I'll,
Thanks.
bye-bye.
Thanks for
Love
coming.
you lots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye,
Bye.
Fiona.
Thank you.
Till
Bye-bye.
next time.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.